Sanders, Ocasio Cortez, and Blumenauer unveil bill pushing Biden to declare national climate emergency. We are out of time. 3 progressive lawmakers introduced legislation Thursday that would require President Joe Biden to declare a national climate emergency, arguing that the U.S. is out of time and excuses to deal with the climate crisis. The National Climate Emergency Act, introduced by Democratic Reps. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York and Earl Blumenauer of Oregon, along with Independent Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont, would direct Biden to declare a national emergency under the National Emergencies Act of 1976, allowing him to unlock sweeping presidential powers and be able to organize resources to mitigate climate change. They had introduced a similar resolution in 2019, but it had little hope of advancing in the Republican-led Senate and under former President Donald Trump. Now, the lawmakers have re-energized their efforts under a new administration committed to combating climate change with an ambitious plan to do so. President Biden has done an outstanding job of prioritizing climate in the first days of his administration, but after years of blatant ignorance from Trump and congressional Republicans, an even larger mobilization is needed, Blumenauer said in a statement unveiling the proposal. If passed, the bill would require Biden to provide Congress with a report detailing the executive branch's actions in combating the climate crisis. The bill would push the executive branch to upgrade infrastructure, modernize buildings to curb pollution, and protect public lands, among other investments. We've made a lot of progress since we introduced this resolution 2 years ago, but now we have to meet the moment. We are out of time and excuses, Ocasio-Cortez said in the statement. She added, "Our country is in crisis and, to address it, we will have to mobilize our social and economic resources on a massive scale." The Center for Biological Diversity, an organization backing the bill, said in a statement that declaring a climate emergency would allow Biden to be able to redirect military funds to build clean energy systems, marshal private industry for clean technology manufacturing, generate millions of high-quality jobs, and finally put an end to dangerous crude oil exports. Ocasio-Cortez and Blumenauer had previously cast their 2019 resolution as a necessary start to a long fight for implementing key parts of the Green New Deal climate change proposal. House votes to remove Marjorie Taylor Greene from committee assignments. The House voted Thursday evening to remove Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene from her committee assignments, a decisive step that comes in the wake of recently unearthed incendiary and violent past statements from the congresswoman that have triggered widespread backlash from Democrats and divided congressional Republicans. The vote tally was 230 to 199, with 11 Republican House members voting with Democrats to remove Greene from her committee assignments. House Democrats, who control the chamber, set up the vote after first attempting to pressure Republicans to strip the Georgia Republican of committee assignments on their own. House Republicans did not take that action, however, and House GOP leader Kevin McCarthy on Wednesday released a statement calling the push by Democrats to take away the congresswoman's committee assignments a partisan power grab. Greene defended herself ahead of the vote in a speech on the House floor and attempted to distance herself from the dangerous and debunked QAnon conspiracy theory, which she has previously embraced. The congresswoman said that after seeing things in the news that didn't make sense to me, she stumbled across QAnon at the end of 2017. Greene said that she became very interested in the conspiracy theory and began posting about it on Facebook and talking about it, adding that throughout 2018 she was upset about things and felt she could not trust the government. The problem with that is I was allowed to believe things that weren't true, and I would ask questions about them and talk about them, and that is absolutely what I regret, she said. Greene also said that she believes 9/11s absolutely happened, and school shootings are absolutely real, and every child that is lost, those families mourn it. In an attempt to put the controversy behind her, the congresswoman said, "These were words of the past, and these things do not represent me. They do not represent my district, and they do not represent my values. The measure approved by the House directs Green's removal from the House Education and Labor Committee and Budget Committee, in light of conduct she has exhibited. The move could set a risky precedent as Democrats target a sitting member of the opposing party in Congress over views expressed prior to her serving as an elected official, one that has the potential to someday be used against the party by Republicans. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi insisted on Thursday, however, that she has no concerns about the precedent it could set. None. Not at all. Not at all. If any of our members threatened the safety of other members, we'd be the first ones to take them off of a committee. That's it, Pelosi said. Outrage over Green grew more intense in Congress in the wake of a report from CNN's K-File that she repeatedly indicated support for executing prominent Democratic politicians in 2018 and 2019 before being elected to Congress. The Georgia Republican has also faced backlash over recently resurfaced comments about the 2018 Parkland school shooting. Students who survived the Parkland, Florida shooting and families of the victims have called for Green's resignation after comments surfaced that showed her agreeing with people who claimed the shooting was a false flag operation. A spokesman for McCarthy called such comments from Green deeply disturbing. In a recent statement, McCarthy attempted to distance Republicans from her rhetoric in his statement on Wednesday. Past comments from and endorsed by Marjorie Taylor Greene on school shootings, political violence, and anti-Semitic conspiracy theories do not represent the values or beliefs of the House Republican Conference. I condemn those comments unequivocally. I condemned them in the past. I continue to condemn them today. This House condemned QAnon last Congress and continues to do so today, he said. But the California Republican went on to accuse Democrats of divisiveness, saying that the Democrats are choosing to raise the temperature by taking the unprecedented step to further their partisan power grab regarding the committee assignments of the other party. Pelosi criticized House Republicans for failing to punish Green, saying on Thursday ahead of the vote, "I remain profoundly concerned about House Republican leadership acceptance of extreme conspiracy theorists." She went on to say, "Particularly disturbing is their eagerness to reward a QAnon adherent, a 9/11 truther, a harasser of child survivors of school shootings, and to give them valued committee positions, including." Who could imagine they would put such a person on the Education Committee? Green has faced pushback from some prominent congressional Republicans, including Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, who slammed her embrace of loony lies and conspiracy theories without naming the congresswoman, in a short but pointed statement Monday night. Despite her remarks on the House floor Thursday, Green has otherwise been publicly defiant in the face of the criticism. In a tweet on Thursday, she wrote, "It's not just me they want to cancel. They want to cancel every Republican. Don't let the mob win." She addressed the controversy during a closed-door meeting of the House GOP conference on Wednesday evening and said her social media posts do not reflect who she is as a person. According to a person in the room, she announced on Saturday that she had spoken with former President Donald Trump and said she is so grateful for Trump's support, adding, "More importantly, the people of this country are absolutely 100% loyal to him because he is 100% loyal to the people and America first." House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer, a Maryland Democrat, made the first move toward stripping Green of her roles on the two committees after speaking with McCarthy on Wednesday. "I spoke to Leader McCarthy this morning, and it is clear there is no alternative to holding a floor vote on the resolution to remove Representative Green from her committee assignments," Hoyer said in a statement, adding that the House will vote on the resolution tomorrow. McCarthy later told reporters he had offered to have Green move to the Small Business Committee. "Marjorie's also a small business owner. Move her to small business. I made that offer to Democrats and they chose to do something that Congress has never done," he said. Democratic Rep. Debbie Wasserman Schultz of Florida, who sponsored the privilege resolution to have Green removed, outlined on Monday in a call with reporters how the House could strip Green of her committee assignments. The resolution required only a simple majority to pass, not a two-thirds vote. We can remove her from the committee because ultimately, even though our party leaders in our party process appoints us to committees, the House actually ultimately confirms those party recommendations, essentially. And so, because it's a House action, we're able to take a House action to remove a member from committee, she said. This story and headline have been updated with additional developments Thursday. Nuclear-powered rocket could get astronauts to Mars faster by 2035. NASA wants to land humans on Mars, but reaching the red planet, on average around 140 million miles away, will be a mammoth feat. Colder than Antarctica and with little to no oxygen, Mars is a hostile environment. The longer it takes astronauts to get there and the longer they stay, the more they are at risk. That's why scientists are looking at ways to reduce trip time. Seattle-based company Ultra Safe Nuclear Technologies (USNC Tech) has proposed a solution. A nuclear thermal propulsion (NTP) engine that could get humans from Earth to Mars in just 3 months. Currently, the shortest possible trip for an unmanned spacecraft is 7 months. But a crewed mission is expected to take at least 9 months. Michael Eads, director of engineering at USNC Tech, says that nuclear-powered rockets would be more powerful and twice as efficient as the chemical engines used today, meaning they could travel further and faster, while burning less fuel. Nuclear technology will expand humanity's reach beyond low Earth orbit and into deep space, he tells CNN, as well as enabling human space travel. It could open up space for galactic business opportunities, he says. Faster space travel. Most rockets today are powered by chemical engines. These could get you to Mars, but it would take a long time, at least 3 years for a round trip, says Jeff Sheehy, chief engineer of NASA's Space Technology Mission Directorate. NASA wants to get there faster to minimize the crew's time in outer space, he says. This would reduce their exposure to space radiation, which can cause health problems including radiation sickness, increased lifetime risk of cancer, central nervous system effects and degenerative diseases. It would also decrease the overall risk of the mission. The longer you're out there, the more time there is for stuff to go wrong, he adds. That's why the space agency is looking to develop nuclear-powered rockets. An NTP system uses a nuclear reactor to generate heat from the uranium fuel. That thermal energy heats a liquid propellant, usually liquid hydrogen, which expands into a gas and is shot out on the back end, producing thrust. NTP rockets produce twice the thrust per unit of propellant than a chemical system, which is like saying it does double the miles per gallon, says Sheehy. This means the technology could get astronauts to Mars and back in less than 2 years. However, one of the main challenges for building an NTP engine is finding a uranium fuel that can withstand the blistering temperatures inside a nuclear thermal engine. USNC Tech claims to have solved this problem by developing a fuel that can operate in temperatures up to 2,700 degrees Kelvin, 4,400 degrees Fahrenheit. The fuel contains silicon carbide, a material used in tank armor, which forms a gas-tight barrier that prevents the escape of radioactive products from the nuclear reactor, protecting the astronauts. Along with other companies developing similar technology, USNC Tech has presented its development to NASA. While Sheehy would not comment on the specifics of any individual designs, he said the developments show that nuclear engines are feasible and could make a good choice for human exploration to Mars. Is the nuclear option safe? Shorter missions would limit the crew's exposure to space radiation, but there is still concern about the radiation emitted from the nuclear reactor inside the spacecraft. This would be mitigated through the rocket's design, Eads explains. The liquid propellants, stored between the engine and the crew area, block out radioactive particles. acting as a tremendously good radiation shield. He says the distance between the crew and reactor also provides a buffer, says Sheehy. An NENTP design would place the living quarters at the other end of the rocket to the reactor. To protect people on the ground, NTP spacecraft would not lift off directly from Earth, Sheehy adds. Instead, a regular chemical rocket would hoist it into orbit, and only then would it fire up its nuclear reactor. Once in orbit, it could do little harm, he says, as blasts and thermal radiation cannot move through a vacuum. If disaster struck and the rocket's reactor broke up, the pieces would not land on Earth or any other planet for tens of thousands of years, he says. By that time, the radioactive substance would have naturally decayed to the point where it wasn't hazardous anymore. Deep space exploration. Although USNC Tech's current goal for a one-way trip is 5 to 9 months, nuclear-powered technology has the potential to cut journeys from Earth to Mars to just 90 days, says Eads. These faster journey times could open up a wealth of opportunities. USNC Tech is hoping to develop its technology for government agencies like NASA and the Department of Defense, and for the commercial space market. The company says its concept could help to power space tourism and rapid orbital logistics services, such as transporting satellites or delivering spacecraft capable of repairing satellites out in space. Sheehy agrees that nuclear-powered rockets will be key to opening up the solar system, but cautions that it could be at least 2 decades before they are used widely. Numerous demonstrations and tests would need to be carried out before a crew is sent to Mars in an NTP rocket, he says. Nobody's ever flown nuclear propulsion yet, he says. I think it's going to have to be flown a few times before somebody sells tickets. Younger adults are biggest spreaders of COVID-19, A new study suggests that the biggest spreaders of coronavirus in the U.S. are adults aged 20 to 49. But that doesn't mean they should be pushed to the head of the vaccine line, experts say. A research team at Imperial College in London used cell phone location data covering more than 10 million people and publicly available information on the spread of the virus to calculate which age groups were most responsible for the spread of the virus. Across most of the U.S., children accounted for very little spread, the researchers said, as did older adults. This could mean that opening schools may not contribute to spread if transmission is controlled among younger adults, they said. This study provides evidence that the resurgent COVID-19 epidemics in the U.S. in 2020 have been driven by adults aged 20 to 49, and in particular adults aged 35 to 49. Before and after school reopening, the team wrote in their report published in the journal Science. Unlike pandemic flu, these adults accounted after school reopening in October 2020 for an estimated 72.2% of SARS-CoV-2 infections in the U.S. locations considered, whereas less than 5% originated from children aged 0 to 9 and less than 10% from teens aged 10 to 19, and it might be the adults aged 35 to 49 who are the biggest factor in driving the pandemic, as opposed to younger adults. Oliver Ratman of the Imperial College COVID-19 response team and colleagues concluded. Prior to the implementation of COVID-19 interventions, contacts concentrated among individuals of similar age were highest among school-aged children and teens, and also common between children, teens and their parents, and middle-aged adults and the elderly. Since the beginning of the pandemic, these contact patterns have changed substantially, the team wrote. This study indicates that in locations where novel, highly transmissible SARS-CoV-2 lineages have not yet established, additional interventions among adults aged 20 to 49, such as mass vaccination with transmission-blocking vaccines, could bring resurgent COVID-19 epidemics under control and avert deaths. They added, they estimated that people 35 to 49 accounted for 41% of the new transmissions through mid-August, and adults 20 to 34 were responsible for another 35%. Children and teens accounted for just 6% of spread. People 50 to 64 made up 15% of transmission. Over time, the share of age groups among reported deaths has been remarkably constant, suggesting that young adults are unlikely to have been the primary source of resurgent epidemics since summer 2020. And that instead changes in mobility and behavior among the broader group of adults aged 20 to 49 underlie resurgent COVID-19 in the U.S. in 2020, the team wrote. Efforts to control virus spread. The researchers said that efforts to control the spread of coronavirus, including vaccination, should probably focus on those aged 20 to 49. But there is not yet enough vaccine to immunize everyone, and the federal government is working with state and local governments to try to vaccinate people in an orderly, fair and logical way. Current U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention guidance put frontline healthcare workers and frail long-term care facility residents at the front of the vaccine line. The White House under both Presidents Trump and Biden has suggested that states open up vaccination to anyone over 65, as this age group is considered most vulnerable to death and severe disease from COVID-19. Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, said Tuesday that while older people are more at risk for severe disease, experts have suspected for some time that younger people are driving the spread of the virus in the U.S. Fauci did not discount the idea that the U.S. should ensure those aged 20 to 49 get vaccinated, but noted that it should not come at the expense of vaccinating older people, especially those with underlying health conditions. You don't want to deprive them to get the younger ones, because they're the ones that are going to wind up in the hospital and have a higher rate of death, Fauci told CNN's Don Lemon. What we don't want to do is to neglect them. Dr. Jonathan Reiner, professor of medicine at George Washington University and CNN medical analyst, said that while it's important to vaccinate older people, younger adults should not necessarily be at the back of the line. I've thought for a while now that the priority groups just aren't working and that we have to open it up to everyone, Reiner told CNN's Jake Tapper Wednesday. Now we can set aside, perhaps, a larger percentage of the vaccines for older Americans. But I think we need to start getting the vaccine out into younger people for exactly this reason. The younger people are the people who are spreading the virus, Reiner added. The Moderna and Pfizer COVID-19 vaccines currently available in the U.S. provide protection against severe disease, though it is unclear whether they prevent transmission of the virus. Researchers have suggested that the type of protection provided by vaccines may have some role in decisions about who should get a vaccine and when. Ultimately, everyone has to be vaccinated, said Reiner. And if you end up vaccinating older people, you'll save their lives because they're at higher risk. And if you vaccinate younger people, you'll save lives also because they're spreading the virus. Two Ohio GOP lawmakers are proposing an annual state holiday in honor of Trump. Two Ohio Republican state lawmakers want to designate June 14th as an annual state holiday honoring former President Donald Trump. In a memo sent last week to members of the Ohio State House GOP reps, John Cross and Reggie Stoltz has called on their colleagues to co-sponsor their bill, which looks to declare June 14th Trump's birthday as President Donald J. Trump Day. The pair wrote that Trump, against great odds, accomplished many things that have led our nation to unparalleled prosperity. Let's show the 3,154,834 Ohio voters, a record and historic number of votes received for president in Ohio, who cast their ballot to re-elect Donald J. Trump, that we as a legislature recognize the accomplishments of his administration, the memo reads, adding that the Ohio House believes it is imperative we set aside a day to celebrate one of the greatest presidents in American history. Trump won the battleground state in the November presidential election and earned its 18 electoral votes, but ultimately fell short of the 270 needed to hold on to the presidency. We fell short in the election, but that doesn't stop us from recognizing the good work President Trump has done, Cross told CNN. "The least we can do is say thank you." Cross told CNN that he hopes to introduce the proposal as a bill in the state legislature this month. Stoltzfus did not respond to a request for comment. Several other presidents have been commemorated by individual states. August 4th is Barack Obama Day in Illinois, the 44th president's home state, where the 44th president served in the legislature and represented in the U.S. Senate. And governors in at least 40 states have signed official proclamations recognizing February 6 as Ronald Reagan Day. But June 14 is also a national holiday, Flag Day, which commemorates the adoption of the American flag in 1777 by the Continental Congress. One Democratic state representative, Jeff Crossman, told the Columbus Dispatch that changing an existing federal holiday that honors the flag is disrespectful. Cross told CNN that the proposal doesn't look to interfere with federal holidays, adding that commemorating a commander-in-chief on Flag Day would be great for any president. "They believe in our flag," which I thought was fitting. The proposal comes as Trump is gearing up for his second impeachment trial in the Senate over his actions leading up to the January 6 insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. California Democratic Representative Lydia Sanchez has introduced legislation that looks to prohibit the use of federal funds to commemorate any president who's been impeached twice in the House. Trump is the only president so far to whom the bill would apply. "I'm looking at his full body of work," Cross said of Trump's actions leading up to January 6, adding, "Our country is better because of him." Slain FBI agents worked to protect children from abusers. The FBI has identified the child pornography suspect who fatally shot 2 FBI agents at a Florida apartment complex as 55-year-old David Huber, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. FBI agent Daniel Alfin gained international attention when he led a team that shut down a major worldwide child pornography website. Agent Laura Schwarzenberger worked more anonymously, teaching children and adults how to avoid online sexual exploitation. Alfin and Schwarzenberger, gunned down Tuesday while serving a search warrant at a child pornography suspect's South Florida apartment, devoted their careers to capturing criminals who sexually abuse youngsters, oftentimes testing the legal boundaries of computer privacy. "We're still reeling from the news," said Shelley Owang, director of the Exploited Children Division at National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. "I feel lucky to have worked with people who had such commitment and resolve." The suspect was identified Wednesday as 55-year-old David Huber, who lived at the apartment complex. A law enforcement official familiar with the matter said investigators are looking into whether Huber may have been using a camera to monitor the agents' activity before opening fire on them and believe multiple shots were fired through a door. The official could not discuss an ongoing investigation publicly and spoke to the Associated Press on condition of anonymity. 3 other agents were wounded, with 2 of them hospitalized. Both of the hospitalized agents were released Wednesday. The 3rd agent was treated at the scene. Huber apparently killed himself after a standoff. Florida court records show Huber with only minor traffic violations. He had no listing as a sex offender and no Florida prison record. Records show he owned computer consulting businesses from 2008 until last year. Broward County records show he was divorced in 2016. Alfin, 36, and an agent for almost 13 years, made headlines 7 years ago when he led a team that took down a Naples, Florida, man who was the lead administrator of Playpen, the world's largest known child pornography website. Stephen Chase had created the website on Tor, an open network on the internet where users could communicate anonymously through hidden service websites. Playpen had more than 150,000 users worldwide. Members uploaded and viewed tens of thousands of graphic images of young victims categorized by age, sex and type of sexual activity involved. The FBI launched an investigation in 2014 after Playpen's IP address was accidentally revealed. After Chase's arrest in 2015, the FBI kept the website operating for 2 weeks to identify other users, hiding malware in the images to discover their IP addresses. From that effort, investigators sent more than 1,000 leads to FBI field offices across the country and thousands more to overseas law enforcement agencies. According to the FBI, 350 arrests were made in the U.S. and 548 internationally, including 25 producers of child pornography and 51 abusers. The operation identified or rescued 55 American children who were sexually abused and 296 internationally. Chase got 30 years. It's the same with any criminal violations. As they get smarter, we adapt, we find them, Alfin said at the time. The New York native added, "It's a cat and mouse game. Except it's not a game. Kids are being abused, and it's our job to stop that." He was married and had one child. Al Wang, who worked with Alfin on the Playpen investigation, said he was humble, collaborative and committed to the mission of stopping child exploitation. Dan was unwavering and had steadfast resolve to try and locate and rescue as many children that were being abused as he could, Al Wang said. It was never about ego or credit or anything like that. He was just a really selfless and collaborative individual. Schwarzenberger, 43, and an agent for 15 years, was part of Rockaway Middle School's Law Studies Magnet program, teaching children about the Internet's dangers, including sexual exploitation and cyberbullying. She would always say, "I feel that coming here and talking about the hard stuff means that I won't see you guys on my end," the Miami school said about the Pueblo, Colorado native in a statement. Al Wang said Schwarzenberger was a wonderful collaborator, who always shared any information about her cases that could be helpful to the center. Laura was committed to seeing that through and to get that information entered in so those children could be helped, Al Wang said. In 2018, Schwarzenberger, a married mother of two, did a TV interview where she discussed computer sexploitation, where hackers claim that they have used a person's computer camera to video record them watching pornography or naked. They threaten to send the video to spouses, relatives, and friends if the person doesn't pay extortion. Sometimes they'd have hacked into the victim's computer and found sexually explicit images. It is very traumatizing for the victim, Schwarzenberger told WPEC-TV. Their reputation is on the line. Attempts to reach the agents' families Wednesday were not immediately successful.